there are certain principles of good work, hard work, that I think are simply important for anyone who is starting a business or keeping a business running, that they need to know, they need to understand.
Originating from deep inside the Rocky Mountains, transported through the power of the internet, and arriving inside your tiny earbuds. It's the Appraiser Coach Podcast.
Minisode.
You know, raising kids is fun. I say that tongue in cheek because sometimes it can be very challenging to raise children. In fact, most of the time, I think it's very challenging to raise children. But we do learn lessons along the way, and we learn them right along, our kids. My son, who is 14 years of age, is currently learning some lessons about life and about business, and I think it very much applies to the appraisal world. I want to pause here and remind each and every one of you that we are sponsored, of course, today by Anow software. Anow being the software that I use daily wherever I'm at. It is very mobile, it is cloud-based, and it helps me to stay in touch with the office and what's going on. Check them out. Go to anow.com/coach to learn more information. That's right. It's anow.com/coach. All right, folks. So my son's 14, and he is the third of four children. So my wife and I have four children. One of them is at college. She's a senior this year. Another one is serving a church mission in another state. And so he's pretty much out of the house. So we basically have two kids left in the process of raising our children. Oh, and a dog. We've got one of those as well. So, but it's interesting as our children go through stages of life and the things that they learn and the principles that they start to experience and experiment with and find opportunities with. My son is 14, and he's not quite the entrepreneur that his brother was, the one that is serving a church mission currently. That brother was a go-getter. That brother was very much an entrepreneurial spirit. He probably started 15 businesses in his life at this point, and more to come. Pretty much every time I talk to him, he has another business idea, even though he's kind of focused on spreading the good word of the gospel, if you will. He's still very much focused on when I get back, here's the business ideas that I have. And the youngest, who is 11, is also kind of a entrepreneurial type individual, always looking for money-making schemes, if you will. But the middle son, not so much. On the other hand, he also has needs and wants, including he loves to ski, to snowboard, I should say. And yes, there is a difference. I'm reminded of that regularly. There is a difference, Dad. But that takes money. We also have our children, once they turn 14, buy their own clothes. We figure they're old enough at that point to make enough money to make sure that they get to the stores. And if they want fancy stuff, if they want cool duds, they earn the money for that. We still provide shelter. We still provide food, all of that stuff. But we feel that once our kids reach the ripe old age of 14, that they can get out and do some things on their own. And if they want to be nicely dressed, rather than going to the discount store, the used, hand-me-down store, that they're going to have to earn their own money for that. And so he has a drive to earn money. And he has been this year going out and getting customers for snow removal. Now, I live in Idaho, and in fact, today it's very blustery. It's very windy. It's very cold, and we got about 2 inches of snow last night. And that's not atypical. About once a week, we have at least a dusting, if not a couple inches fall this time of year. And we live in a subdivision that's quite spread out. We live on acreages, not on small parcels. And usually long driveways, usually long sidewalks. Usually there's quite a bit that needs to be done there. We do own a four-wheeler that does have a snowplow on it. And I do give my kids free rein of that four-wheeler if they will go out and hustle to get work. They also are provided free gas. I try to help my kids as much as possible, but as far as getting the jobs and actually doing the work, that's got to be completely up to them. And here's a key, not just getting the customers, but keeping the customers. And that is a key. Even in small business, like plowing driveways, statistics show that new businesses don't last. And there's a reason for that. And there's reasons, I should say, for that, plural. Meaning there's a whole lot of people out there just not able to make it because, in my opinion, they don't follow certain principles, or there's other reasons as well, certainly. But there are certain principles of good work, hard work, that I think are simply important for anyone who is starting a business or keeping a business running, that they need to know, they need to understand. And I call these principles of prosperity. And I teach them often here and in my newsletter that goes out to the All-Star team, and of course in my mastermind groups and the Appraiser Academy. These are good principles of good business that could be applied to any profession, but we have specifically catered them, of course, to the appraisal profession. But as a parent, I feel it's incumbent upon myself to teach my son these principles. Now, let's be honest. You can lead a horse to water, right? You can finish the phrase. I can teach these principles to my son. It's completely up to him whether or not he actually follows through on them. Completely up to him whether that happens. And I would say a lot of times he has to learn the hard way. Our children have to experience and experiment with different things, and lessons are learned, positive and negative. But overall, I feel like failure allows us to pick ourselves up, brush ourselves off, and move forward. And part of our job as parents is to stand back and allow our children to fail. Some of our responsibility is not to be the helicopter parent and swoop in and save our children from all of these hardships. And that's hard. Let's be honest. As a parent, you want to coddle your kid. You want to swoop in, and when they get hurt on the baseball field, to run out and fix their boo-boo. Obviously, the better process typically is to stand back and let them trip and fall and hurt themselves and see what they do with that. And sometimes it's hard for us as parents, especially when it involves others, right? Especially when they're failing publicly. Right? Especially when it comes to the neighbors. And not that I'm all about keeping up with the Joneses. Frankly, I don't give a rip about the Joneses. But you don't want to be that neighbor, right? That has your son go out and say, hey, I want to plow your driveway. And then he fails, right? And then they're kind of looking at you like, what kind of kid did you raise here, right? So it's harder in that situation to not swoop in and say, hey, I can help this. He's really a good kid. Sorry, he was sick or what have you, right? That is not probably the best situation. In fact, I know for a fact it's not. Allow your kids to fail, right? Allow your kids to learn the lessons now that they will benefit from in the future. Let me give you an example. Years ago, my wife and I established a program in our home where if something is needed by our kids and they don't have the money to do so, they're welcome to take out a mortgage. Now, let me explain what that means. They are welcome to get a loan from us, okay, with interest, by the way, with a piece of paper that they sign and collateral. Okay, so let's say they want $30 to go skiing this weekend. Okay, so one of the things that they could do if they don't have the $30 is they could take out a loan at a 10% interest. Okay, so let's say they borrow $30 from mom and dad. They will need to pay that back within a certain period of time with interest. Okay, so not just the $30, but the $3 as well that I'm going to make because I was the bank. But they also must put up collateral that will get foreclosed on if they fail to pay back the loan. Now, I know some of you are rolling your eyes thinking, Dustin, your kids are 11 and 14. Really? Yeah, really. So here's the thing, folks. I would much rather my 14-year-old learn what foreclosure means when it comes to his bicycle than to learn what foreclosure means when it comes to his home or his vehicle when he's 22. And I would much rather they learn those lessons in my home in a safe environment than to get out there in the big, bad, mean world and learn them the hard way. And I've seen too many of my employees go through this process of learning the hard way, right? because they didn't learn it when they were kids. I think it's so important that we teach our children principles and we allow our children to fail and we allow our children to have hard consequences, which will grow them up and help them to become adults. One of the principles that I try to teach my children, one of the principles of prosperity, is to promise the moon, but give them the galaxy. Okay, and what does that mean? Now, I've heard some people say that you underpromise and overdeliver. Okay, I don't like that because, frankly, I don't think you ought to be underpromising. In other words, I think you ought to tell them what they're getting for their money. I think that when my son goes out door to door and says, I will do your walks, I may be only 14, but I do have use of a four-wheeler. I do have a plow on that four-wheeler. I am a homeschool kid, so I stay at home, so I don't have to wait till I get home from school to plow. Okay. I can do it during the day. And my big brother taught me how to do it, and I do my own. Okay. So I've got a reference. It may be my dad, but I do have a reference. Okay. And this is how I will do it. I will do this area and I will do this area, and this is how much I will charge. And I want them to be honest and just tell them very point blank what it is that they're going to do. I think that's super important. Okay. But then when it comes to actually delivering, this is where the principle really kicks in. And this is what I try to teach my son. Okay. Tell them what you will do for the money. For $20, I will plow your driveway and shovel your walks, right? That's what I will do. And leave it at that. But how do you maintain relationships long term? How do you keep that loyalty with your customers? That's where you give them the galaxy. Promising them the moon is simply saying, for your money, I will do X. Give them the galaxy is you don't just give them the moon, you go beyond. Now, maybe it's a little bit of a stretch to say the galaxy, right? I understand how big the cosmos, well, none of us really understand, but I get it, okay? But give them a little bit more. In other words, don't underpromise and overdeliver. Promise what you're going to give them. State it very matter-of-factly, okay? Don't underpromise. Promise them what you will do for them, and then do more. So I had this talk with my son, a couple of weeks ago when he started this new venture this year. And we had a discussion about what that might be. I said, listen, you need to tell them exactly what you're going to plow, and that it's not just that you're going to come in with a four-wheeler and scrape, but that you're also going to take the shovel by hand and you're going to do their walks, right? But what could you do? And I didn't tell him what he should do. I left that up to him. I said, what could you over-deliver? You're promising them the moon, and you're going to give them the moon, but now you give them the galaxy. This is how you keep customers long-term. You don't just give them what you promised. You do a little bit more always. So what are you going to do? And he and I brainstormed a little bit, and he came up with the idea that he would salt their sidewalks as well. No extra money. He's not even going to tell them up front. Okay. He's simply going to do that. And that's what he did. So what he's done is he's gone out, he's plowed, he's shoveled. And then on top of that, something he did not tell them he would do is he's putting salt on their sidewalks, especially in front of the steps where it can get very treacherous. That's his over-deliver. Now, that thing is going to keep him in business next year and the next year. I'll tell you what's already happened. What's already happened is the word has spread. He's doing an excellent job at doing the walks. And he already, instead of just having one or two customers, which is what he planned, he now has 4 customers just in our subdivision. And that has come by word of mouth. That has come by neighbors talking to neighbors and saying, you know what, this kid may only be 14. This may only be his first year. But I'll tell you, this kid not only does my walks, but he does my driveway. And on top of that, he's salting the steps. This kid is awesome. And he's right on top of things. And the price is right. I want to pause here and remind you about a program where the price is right as well. That is called Anow software. Okay. Now, when you look at the price of Anow, you might step back and go, do I really need that? I could probably do a spreadsheet and keep track of my appraisal stuff through Excel or through Google Sheets or something that's free. Okay, folks, believe me when I say Anow software is not a spreadsheet software. Okay, that's not what it's for. Anow is a total appraisal business management system. Okay. Now, what do I mean by that? Yes, you can keep track of all of your appraisal orders. Yes, you can find out where they are in the status, right? Something you could probably set up and do with Excel. But folks, what Anow does is it gives you a snapshot, a picture very easily. You can keep track of all of your appraisers. You can keep track of all of your appraisal assignments. You can find out where your business is financially, where it needs to be, where all of these orders are coming from. You can break it down by order type. You can break it down by property type. You can break it down by clients and clientele. And you can, yes, keep track of payments and what's past due and what's 90 days past due and 180 days past due and a year past due. And all of this can happen so simply. Yes, could you do a lot of this through a spreadsheet process? Yeah, you could, with a lot of work. What is your time worth, folks? To be able to open up Anow wherever you are, to hit one button and see where you're at for the month is gold. I do that almost daily. That's just one of the things that Anow makes simple for me and will for you as well. When you look at the quote unquote cost of Anow, folks, trust me when I say it is not a cost. It is an investment. It's an investment in you and your business. Check them out. Go to anow.com/coach. That's ANOW.com/coach. All right, folks, we are back. We are talking today about principles of prosperity, and specifically, we're talking about the principle of teaching your children responsibility, but more importantly, and this is where I want to parlay into the appraisal world. Okay. This idea, one of the principles of prosperity of promising them the moon, but give them the galaxy. What is it that you are doing in your own appraisal business? I know what some of you are saying. Well, Dustin, come on. AMCs, right. Like I'm going to over deliver for them. Okay. Yeah, I understand. I get it. I understand that some of you don't like working for AMCs, but folks, I'll tell you what, it's been my bread and butter for years and years and years. I expect it to be for years down the road as well. And they are clients. They are people that sign my paycheck, and I'm going to do the best I can to make sure that I promise the moon and give them the galaxy. Let me give you an example. This is something that we do in my office regularly. In fact, I would say 99% of the time. You do know that 98% of all stats are made up on the spot, but nonetheless, about 99% of the time, this is one of the ways that we promise the moon, but give them the galaxy. When an order comes in, a bid comes in, right? And it may just come in the form of an engagement letter showing up in our inbox, or it may be a reach out with a phone call or an email or what have you, but they always have a due date. Okay. Typically that due date is 1, maybe 2 weeks out. Okay. So we need this report back by the 17th, and today is the 2nd. Okay. This is what we do in my office. In my office, we always promise them the moon by telling them that we will have it in by the due date. Okay. Or we bid based on a certain date. Okay. I can have this back to you by the 17th. In almost every case, and when I say almost every, I do not remember in the last year, maybe 2 years, that we have not been able to deliver on this promise. We always, always, always deliver that order early. Always. That's what we do. We promise them a certain date, so the 17th, but we turn it in the 13th or the 14th. Always. Now, here's what happens. I would say, again, all stats, 98% of stats are made up on the fly, right? But I would say 98% of appraisers are not working that way. Really. I mean, a high percentage of appraisers are not working that way. Why? Because I talk to them all the time, and they're constantly behind, and they're constantly asking for due date extensions, and they're constantly saying, this thing was due yesterday. I've really got to get this thing in. Man, I can't imagine turning something in on the due date, much less after the due date. One of the ways that you can be loyal and find that your clients will then be loyal in return, meaning they're going to come to you often. See, appraisers talk all the time about AMCs being bottom of the barrel scrapers, and they're always looking for the lowest fee. Guess what, folks? That actually isn't true. It really isn't. Now, are they trying to cut costs? Certainly. Do they want a lower bid? Absolutely. Okay, that happens, sure. But that is not their number one concern. It truly is not. I am friends with chief appraisers at many AMCs, and we have these discussions, okay? And I'm telling you, speed is so much more important than fee. And you can ask for a premium if you are one that constantly delivers early. It happens all the time. We know that other appraisers are bidding less than us, yet we get the order. Why? Because we promise the moon, but give them the galaxy. Meaning we promise them a certain due date, but always deliver early. With technology, with human resources, with the right business model, that is not a hard thing to do. In fact, it's quite easy to do once you get in the groove. You don't feel like you're constantly trying to catch up and get air because you have all these due dates looming. You're simply on top of it, and constantly it's very easy to turn things in early and with high quality at the same time. Folks, what is it that you are doing for your clients? And not just talking AMCs here, and not just talking direct lenders, but also non-lender work. How is it that you can promise them the moon, but give them the galaxy? Thank you for joining me today, folks. I want to remind you, of course, speaking of promising the moon, but giving them the galaxy, I hope that I'm giving the galaxy each and every time we meet on the Appraiser Academy. It is a monthly online interactive meeting that you have an opportunity to interact with me. And right now you can get in for free. Okay. 1 month free for everybody that wants to get in. Just go to my website. You'll figure out how. Go to my website, theappraisercoach.com. Take a look at the Appraiser Academy and use the coupon code. Make sure you get in free. If you can't find the coupon code, reach out to Lee, my assistant, the assistant at theappraisercoach.com, and ask them. Tell her that I told you that you could have a month free to check it out. No obligation. I hope you will join us. We have a great time in there, and we learn principles of prosperity and how to apply them to the appraisal business world. Thank you for joining me today, folks. We'll catch you next time.
You've been listening to the Appraiser Coach podcast with Dustin Harris. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating and post a short review on iTunes. For more in-depth insider information on how you can make more money as a real estate appraiser, visit theappraisercoach.com and sign up for the All-Star team today. Thanks for joining us. And now, get out there and create some value.
One of the promises, sorry, editor, let me back up.